Welcome in, everyone. Thanks for joining us and to our live stream in the Wave Now studio. And of course, the big story as it continues to develop throughout the day, the big breaking news that we were among, the very first to let you all know what was going on as far as this awful, deadly, growing tragedy of a plane crash involving that UPS cargo plane, Flight 2976. And we're just going to begin with the latest that we know as this 8:05 timeline for the Wave News Extra stream for our audience. Our community is starting as we're going to play some of that video and, of course, the newest information updates so that you can follow along as we're gaining all this new information, breaking news updates on your devices, wherever you are joining us and wherever you are right now with your link to the Louisville community that is hurting and grieving with all the loved ones who have been impacted and may have lost their own loved ones as a result of this awful crash. So just beginning with the video we've been able to find setting sort of the stage of the horror for us. Kentucky's governor, by the way, tonight confirming the focus really is now from a search and rescue effort to recovery. As far as we know tonight, 12 people are confirmed to have died in Tuesday's crash, including a child. We do want to give credit to who recorded this security video. This comes from Fleet Unlimited on Outer Loop. And you see just how that smoke so quickly started rising there in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. An update from the NTSB as we got to hear their first statements and words from the GO team, as they'll be described on the ground here in the Louisville Metro, saying that they did recover the black boxes from the plane. What I want to play for you all tonight is some more new video that shows us another horrifying vantage plane of that instant when the UPS plane crashed. We do want to warn you, this next video I'm about to play for you is going to be much more disturbing. That's as best as I could put it, but I do want to let you all know this is what I'm playing right now. So take a look at the left side of your screen. Yeah, that's the plane coming in. You could see the plane crash into that very building, the fireball that followed. People from the businesses nearby, look at, they're in the middle of your screen. They're running away to try and get to as safe a place as they can. And this is coming from a car driver's dash cam. That is our perspective. So again, just the horrifying update to know that at least 12 people lost their lives, including a child connected to this crash. The governor, Bashir, saying as far as the circumstance, which just adds to perhaps the heartbreak of it all for the child, was with family at Grade A Auto, and the business today and tonight letting us know that they themselves lost employees and customers in this crash. You see this inferno just looping right before our eyes. Hope you stay with us as we will be getting ready for our newscast on Wave News at 11, because coming up then tonight, our Julia Richardson is going to have part of her conversation with that business owner as they too are grieving the loss of coworkers, of friends, and of the customers who just happened to be there at the most unimaginably awful time possible. And not just for Grade A Auto Parts, there are several businesses recovering after the tragic crash. We're going to show you part of our team coverage throughout this evening. We're going to begin tonight with Wave News reporter Alina Noakes, who her focus today was in getting in touch with business owners, employees, anyone in this section right by Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport, a very industrial area. Lots of these kinds of businesses, but in their own way, directly impacted by the crash and now the aftermath.
About a mile behind me is the site of that deadly plane crash. Half a mile of carnage, not just from the plane, but also from businesses in its path. Many employees of those businesses watching it all unfold. This was the moment UPS Flight 2976 careened off the runway and into an industrial corridor.
It knocked me out of my foot. I went outside to see what's going on. It was flames all over.
Sabit Aliv was inside his business, Kentucky Truck Parts and Services, when it happened. His surveillance cameras capturing the intensity. Repeat explosions for what felt like hours as tanks erupted from a petroleum recycling plant.
It was like a tornado flame with the sound. It It was bad, yes.
Sobbit ran for his life. He hasn't been able to go back since. Investigators have locked the site down to anyone from the public. Business owners like Sobbit have no idea what they'll return to. Okolona Fencing Company is in the same position. They have moved operations downtown, getting help from friends and vendors to keep going.
We're just doing what we can to try to help our customers and make sure that their needs are taken care of.
Dennis Thurman and his crew are working any way they can. Above all, they, like Sobbit, are grateful they still can. It's
a business, and we can definitely recover our business. It's not a big deal, but those people they went to work that day and didn't come back. There's nothing to be said about that besides just prayers.
At this point, there is no clear indication when investigators are going to be done with cleanup. They are saying this is going to be a multi-day event. So for the public and for these business owners, it remains unclear when access may be granted to this site. Again, business owners being told it will probably be upwards of a week. In Louisville, Alina Noakes, Wave News.
Thanks to Alina, and of course the rest of the team we're going to get to, but she mentioned the scale of the timeline that it's likely going to be in place. And of course, for those of you who had to follow the shelter in place last night, that radius now much smaller at our last check to a quarter mile of the crash site. But the dangers, the risks out there still persist. And we'll touch on kind of what this trade-off, the transition into the overall investigation is going to be, because we saw the firefighters, the crews, the hazmat, emergency managers all out there doing the best they could to contain the blaze, as it were, and then kind of shifting that into the recovery part. But tonight you're going to hear sort of my conversation here in studio with a retired U.S. Air Force pilot when it comes to the handoff, as it were, the baton of the relay race for the timeline that's going to be with the NTSB taking charge in the aftermath of the investigation. So to the point of firefighters and all the first responders who, at our last check, even if it is now in a recovery mindset, still working hard out there on whatever scenes, they know that they have to be there and they have to focus on that. Volunteers we've met in the last 12, 24 hours, also hard at work to make sure that those same first responders putting themselves in what likely in the moments the inferno was still going, very toxic, toxic scenes of the crash. Well, these are volunteers who want to make sure those first responders are taken care of. Wave News reporter Logan Perrone is the one who visited a church in Okolona today, opening its doors to those doing their best in the middle of this tragedy.
Kentucky Baptist Convention's disaster relief team has been volunteering at situations like this for years. And when the call came in last night here in Louisville, they answered. In a moment of need, you need to look no further than right here in our own community.
Our hearts are torn and hurts for the people affected.
Ron Crow is the disaster relief director for Kentucky Baptist Convention. Hours after UPS Flight 2976 went down, his team stepped up, providing meals to 350 first responders in less than 4 hours.
They usually don't question the why. They often just say, how can I help? Because they want to do something. And when we give them an assignment, they willingly and joyfully do what we've asked them to do, no matter how difficult it is.
That team, 15 volunteers in total, continued working Wednesday out of the kitchen at Parkland Baptist Church.
It's an absolute no-brainer. That's the easiest yes.
It's where Pastor Chris Heading opened up the space for them as quickly as they worked. His community has also risen to the moment, donating food and finances to pitch in wherever they can.
It's such a blessing to have a group of people that want to genuinely help others. And so, whatever they can do, they're willing to step up and do that.
It's a big task for a larger-than-life moment in Louisville. But Crow says their work is a gift from God and a reminder.
Sometimes the small things make the greatest impact.
As far as how long KBC will be here on hand to help with the situation, we're told that they're going to be monitoring it as it unfolds, but ultimately their MO is that they're flexible. Reporting in Okolona, Logan Perrone, Wave News.
So out of tragedy, so many, good neighbors putting their hearts to work for others in a time of need. Now, for any of you who noticed as the night wore on last night, and that plume of smoke was only getting bigger and bigger, many of you probably could even see it miles away from the initial crash site and the distance that was between where this happened and where you live. For some, unfortunately, that crash happened pretty much in their backyard. Here in our continuing team coverage, Wave News reporter Fernando Garcia Franceschini is sharing what some witnesses in our community are saying.
I spoke with the owner of Embry's Auto Parts. It's a shop that's literally right down the street to where we are right now. He says they were getting ready to close shop for the day when they heard this loud boom, and suddenly they looked up and saw this massive UPS logo coming straight at them. Take a look at your screen right now. These are pictures that he shared with me. He says this massive inferno missed them probably by about 30 feet. So that just gives you an idea as to how close they were to where everything happened. He tells me there were 3 employees inside the shop and a family waiting outside. Thankfully, everyone made it out safely. He's had, a busy and emotional day today. I want you to take a listen to a part of the interview that we had with him earlier today.
And looked up and we could see the UPS, logo pretty much coming right through our window. And then it hit the silos over there that were full of oil and spun. It just ignited a massive inferno. And, it engulfed the whole surrounding area and probably missed us about 30 feet.
Colin still hasn't been able to go check in on his store, but he says that's not really what's important right now. He says he's just grateful that himself and his people are safe and sound. Now, because they're so close to the airport, Colin says there was always a concern that something like this could potentially happen. But on Tuesday, those concerns became a reality. He recognizes it's going to be hard to come back here. His business probably is facing some sort of damage, but he says, they're taking it one step at a time. And right now, they're just grateful to be alive and well. Fernando Garcia Franceschini, Wave News.
A tragedy that's touching so many different perspectives and kinds of people in our community. Worth also saying thank you to the folks joining us on Facebook. And for those of you who have these very deep rooted connections to where you live and in the community, and the people who are probably trying to process this in the best way that they can. Grateful that you are joining us as we're, in our job and our ability to share as much as we can with you tonight, and for as long days, weeks, likely beyond months that the story is going to impact our community. One of those ways that the crash impacted immediately what felt like should be normal is flights in and out of Muhammad Ali International Airport. We do know arrivals and departures resumed as close to regular capacity as they could in the morning. Our team at the airport was there with cameras to see many people hugging each other, celebrating that their own respective flights landed safely. And so we decided to approach some passengers, talk to them, that some of them described that they were in the air at the time of the crash, and the panic that they felt as their own planes were diverted, couldn't make it home, not knowing quite exactly what was happening here in Louisville.
I just said a prayer and got home and just hope and pray that I will get home. I've been gone away from home since last Tuesday. I've been on vacation with my son and daughter-in-law. So I was just glad to get here. When we landed, I said, thank you. Thank you.
Everybody was pretty shook up on the airplane because, you hear all the things that are going on with air traffic control and all that stuff. So then you worry, did something major happen? I mean, we had no clue what had happened until we actually landed.
And sort of the shock of the news maybe impacting folks as they were landing, or able, when they landed, to get on their phones and check in with their families and loved ones. A reminder, by the way, the week, whatever is unfolding, should you have plans to fly in and out of SDF, that you can check flight statuses on flightlouisville.com. And that is there. That's generally pretty quickly updated if there are any changes to update. Now, what we do want to let you know as we want to play you the simulation here. So this is what we were able to use our maps, Google Earth and maps, of the projected flight path of this flight. It was an MD-11, a McDonnell Douglas plane, this UPS 2976. Now, the model itself was made in 1991. New documents, by the way, our troubleshooters dug into this today from the Federal Aviation Administration. They're showing that there was a crack on the plane's center wing fuel tank in September. The plane model was once used to carry passengers, but it now is primarily used for cargo operations because of its large capacity and capabilities. And records show the last time the model was used to carry passengers, this meaning the MD-11, was in 2014. What I was wanting to play for you, so I was trying to get that video sorted out, was, I might be getting ahead of myself and playing some of the video. So we'll come back here inside of the studio, and for official commentary coming from this Department of Transportation from the FAA, I want to play you a bit of what Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy had to say in his initial press conference today. The first matter of business was relating to this UPS cargo plane crash. The latter part, which you can read up on wave3.com, was having to do with the government's decision to scale back on some of those commercial flights because of the air traffic controller shortage. But in essence, this is a longer clip of what Secretary Duffy had to say when it came to the tragedy that unfolded here in Louisville.
We are not in the business of theories. We don't speculate. We are going to wait for the facts to come out. And with those facts, we will present them to the American people, as well as with the NTSB. I'd also note the FAA has a ground team in conjunction with the NTSB, both of them are doing great work to get to the facts of what happened. I do want to extend my condolences to the families of those who lost loved ones in the crash. I did have an opportunity to speak with the union head of the UPS pilots, extended my condolences as well. He indicated that he was very good friends with the pilots on that aircraft. So condolences to the families. This issue, though, of the aircraft is very different than the second issue, which is air traffic controllers, which, by the way, this was not an air traffic control issue. It appears that it was a mechanical issue. Everyone's been clear on that. That is not speculation. Two very separate issues at play.
So that was a statement there from Secretary Duffy. So back to what our troubleshooters were digging into as far as the model itself, the MD-11, and the issues that unfolded. So as the troubleshooters were digging in a little further, they discovered that the UPS plane in Tuesday's crash spent much of September and October at a maintenance facility in San Antonio. Records from the time show workers found rust and cracks inside the plane. Now, these are records submitted to a voluntary FAA database that shows workers found the rust on structural components in the bilge area of the plane, as well as a crack on a support that was near the center wing fuel tank. Now, the findings may be just a coincidence as the plane was undergoing maintenance. That's what our troubleshooters were just collecting this data. The NTSB did reveal the plane's left engine fell off as it was taking off. They're going to be reviewing maintenance records as well as records from the engine manufacturer and the plane manufacturer. Now, we've talked to aviation experts. Another lawyer we were in touch with this afternoon cautioned that the records in the database may not be complete and may not show everything that was worked on. UPS had 27 MD-11s in its fleet. The plane could have been undergoing routine maintenance. We asked UPS about the maintenance. The company has not responded to our questions. MD-11s have been involved in 11 crashes over the years. An international database shows there hasn't been a crash with fatalities involving an MD-11 since the year 2009. The plane itself built 34 years ago. Those three reports from this year are, though, only a fraction of the reports on this plane. The database has 528 records in it dating back to the year 2007. 8:25 on this Wednesday night, November 5th. We're going to take a quick break, as I was alluding to a little early, to start our hour here on the live stream of Wave News Extra. We're going to have our guest here in studio, retired United States Air Force commander and pilot Sean Dawley, kind of walk us through with his insight into aviation safety and flight safety about what he expects not only could the initial stages of the NTSB investigation look like, the kinds of experts and teams that are going to be involved, but also on a very human level, just the tragic physical scenes, charred, mangled things that they're going to have to parse through to get to the bottom as best as they can of what happened in those awful moments. So we're going to take a brief break and be right back with much more of tonight's Wave News Extra. I want to thank everyone for joining us for tonight's edition of Wave News Extra. So after this break, we're thankful to have him, obviously under very difficult circumstances, but retired U.S. Air Force Commander Pilot Sean Dawley, who's been part of our coverage throughout the early afternoon. But Sean making time to join us here in the Wave Now studio. And Sean, under normal circumstances, I'd be very glad to have you here. But given what's happened in the last 24 hours, it's difficult to say the least, and the different degrees. Our hearts, of course, still with the families of everyone who's been impacted. And if you wanted to start there, Sean, I think, for folks to understand just your career in aviation, understanding there's so many people who give their lives, their time, their sweat to understanding the ins and outs. So many people make this industry possible. But walk us through perhaps, you as an aviator, the scale of just the human impact of all the different people who, we don't know just how many more are going to be feeling some kind of grief. And then just in the days and weeks ahead, perhaps the toll that this takes on first responders and investigators who are on the ground right now and having to, do their job in very extremely stressful circumstances.
Sure. Well, certainly, I think it goes without saying that the toll that it took on the initial wave of first responders and people who continue to both fight the fire and then switch into search and recovery from search and rescue, obviously had to navigate a fairly difficult emotional landfill. But as we've now transitioned or are transitioning to the investigative phase, there will be some overlap. The first responders, the emergency management teams are still at the tail end of some of their work, but they have more work to do as the GO team from the National Transportation Safety Board has arrived. And these professionals have a tremendous amount of experience in investigating aircraft mishaps, highly trained, highly educated, very credentialed. But despite the masterful intellectual rigor they bring to deconstructing and reverse engineering what led up to this incident, they have to do that within the context of a severe, emotional cloud hanging over them. I mean, ultimately, we live our lives through our screen so often. It could be easy sometimes to forget that these are real people. There were real people on the plane. There were real people on the ground. And so We could want to believe that professionals would somehow be immunized from the raw feelings that something like this would engender, but they're not. And so my prayers are with them as they do what they need to do as professionals. I'm mindful that they're doing it as people, because it's not easy duty, what they have ahead of them right now.
But it is a call of service, perhaps, to be in this position. And I could, ask, because I think it's a natural human instinct, but we have to be mindful of the fact too that, for as many dozens upon hundreds of questions you or I might have, the process still has to play out. We have to, grant grace and patience as they go through it, minute by minute, hour by hour. To that end, what are you processing yourself as, you or I perhaps are sitting down this afternoon to watch? This was our first chance to hear from the NTSB Go team. It's, again, the first volley of this information, but is there anything, that you would want the folks at home to understand or put into context about, okay, this is where we are, and there's still places we're going to have to go as part of the investigation?
Sure. When this team of individuals arrived, they did not show up empty-handed. They are not simply trained, but they are equipped and resourced with checklists, continuity binders, a very methodical and well-codified process so that when they hit the ground, they can go to work immediately. The first handful of hours and day is usually geared towards setting up the structure and beginning that initial collection phase. But from my time as a chief of flight safety, you learn that in the initial phases, you just want to collect. This is not the time to start developing, theories as to the causal factors, but rather in this initial phase, they're going through their processes to make sure that they're looking at everything. And he talked about the establishment of specific subgroups, maintenance, structure, operations, the power plant. So you've got small teams of subject matter experts, bore sight focused on individual aspects that collectively all combined to make this, airplane fly, and to include specialists in liaisoning with air traffic control, the airport authority, and what have you. But to the point that I think you somewhat opened with, at a time when people are grieving loss of life, family, friends, those directly connected, those tangentially, touched, some people may feel a tad guilty that they just harbor this deep curiosity to want to know why. And they may be thinking, like, should I really be so concerned about what happened when people are grieving? They should give themselves grace. It is a deeply rooted human yearning when confronted with a tragedy, especially one so public, to want to know what happened. How did it happen? Why did it happen? That is a completely normal response. And I would just encourage people to have patience, that an investigation can be done either very quickly or accurately, usually not both, usually. And so though patience is required, I would also encourage people to have confidence that some of the best and brightest on the planet are laser-like focused on helping us all understand what led up to and was causal in this event.
What's fascinating and worth asking you as far as the context and the scale, because here you are, we're talking about sub teams of subject matter experts. You mentioned it takes it. My metaphor being this really is an orchestra of specialized performers, as it were, and they're so well versed masters of their own instruments. But perhaps the conversation, and you did this, I know, in your career, interagency, collaboration, communication, how everything has to sort of be passed off, what that exchange of information and or deferring to NTSB leadership, or if the NTSB has to know in a certain situation, gosh, I have to make a phone call to some other set of experts to kind of walk us to getting to the ultimate goal. The mission behind this is to get to the end of the investigation, right?
That's right. And the first collaboration begins with the transition from emergency management, who are orchestrating the first responders, to the investigation. Usually that transition has some overlap built into it. But then as we get into the investigative process, it requires hand-in-glove coordination between multiple parties of different agencies at the federal and the state and the local level. And if we're looking for a silver lining, I will say that from experience, in large measure, turf wars and organizational battle lines tend to somewhat, evaporate in a moment like this. Everybody from every agency, from every level of government right now has both their mind and their heart fully invested in getting to this. Now, that being said, there needs to be an overarching lead. And so the National Transportation Safety Board, when it comes to the investigative process, has a designated investigator in charge who will be the conductor, to use your earlier analogy, to get the entire orchestra somewhat in harmony. Because no individual piece of that orchestra typically is, in this analogy, going to be the one that resolves this on their own. It could be that an element of one group's investigation ties into a seemingly disconnected element of another, and so on and so on. But when you put it all together, it creates that cohesive and comprehensive picture that will hopefully provide us resolution as to what happened. It's not going to undo the ramifications of
the
what
horror
they are.
that happened. Yeah.
Right. But Lord willing, the lessons that will be drawn from this could potentially preempt a similar experience in the future.
So perhaps, to apply, a difficult, weight bearing lesson from all this. And before I let you go, just because, there's only so much time we have to discuss, but I'd love to have you back on, whenever that is possible. For any folks out there, and to your point, that yearning sensation, which is very human and deep rooted, and not everyone gets their qualifications, has the innate passion to be an aviator or to be in aviation. I wonder if as you're hearing some of what was described as just updates, if there's certain context or operative words you were hearing for the NTSB team just this afternoon today, things that the average person is going to say, well, I wish I knew what that meant, or if there's just things that or terms we might hear over the course of the investigation play out, and folks can remember, well, when we're referring to this means X, Y, Z.
So I'm a bit of a disadvantage because as somebody from the profession, everything he said, made crystal clear, sense to me. But I do understand that people who don't live in this world are likely to maybe not fully comprehend it the way I would be at a loss if we were talking about the medical field or the financial industry and so on and so on. I think he did a great job of explaining at a high level that we are going to begin a process to acquire and then analyze. Then we're going to process what we find, and we're going to resolve a causal solution. And so at a high level, they are approaching it the way you would investigate anything else. Gather all the information conceivable, analyze it, looking for potential contributing factors, and then synthesize a feasible reason as to why this unfolded. But again, we live in a microwaved society, and we are accustomed to getting answers right away. Patience and calm. And this is also the time that people should really be wary of offering up unhinged speculation. Even as an aviator watching the videography that is so prevalent, it will be tempting for me to draw what could be considered a reasonable conclusion.
Yeah.
But one thing that spending 25 years around airplanes and the Air Force taught me was hold off making a judgment until you have as much information as possible. And right now we are in the information gathering stage. Let's allow these professionals that are here to serve the aviation community in general and our community specifically the time to do their job, so that when they get it done, they will have got it done right.
And then to your point, as then we give ourselves the benefit of time, themselves the benefit of information gathering, and then to your point, if we have as complete a picture as possible, then whenever you and I sit down to have that discussion, you're like, okay, well, I know A, B, and C. And if that's their conclusions to some things, it's like, I think that would make all the sense in the world. And then we rely on your insight and expertise to do that when the time comes. Then
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Well, Sean, I appreciate your time. Sean
Yes, sir.
Dawley joining us here in the Wave Now studio. We're going to take a quick break. So much more coverage as, of course, this story, this tragedy is still unfolding and developing before our eyes. But when we do get this information and insight from folks like Sean and everyone else involved, we'll make sure to share as much as we can with you. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to welcome folks back into the Wave Now studio. Appreciate you staying with us on this breaking news live stream. As many different perspectives and tidbits of information and updates as we can on the deadly UPS cargo plane crash. So close and there relative to Muhammad Ali International Airport, which the airport's official team letting us know one runway was up and running at last check. They're asking anyone scheduled to depart or arrive at SDF had been through to start the day and looking ahead in the short-term future to closely monitor their flight status because delays and cancellations very much could pop up at any given point through a day. Muhammad Ali International Airport did post a notice of their flight status page letting us know runway 1129 is open at SDF and is available for operations, and see if we can play that bit of sound for you right here.
We expect there'll probably be many delays and a few more cancellations until we get another runway open, but we are operational. TSA is screening passengers and the tower is clearing aircraft, and so we are moving along in that fashion.
Again, a reminder to monitor flight status. You can do that on the Louisville Muhammad Ali Airport official website. Well, moving through the day, we're getting as clearer, but still very murky, but a better idea of the area that has been impacted by what happened to UPS Flight 2976. Countless witnesses at and around the airport seeing the moments leading up to this crash and thereafter. I want to play for you a bit of a sort of a summary of things that we know as of tonight, coming up on 8:45. Wave News anchor Brian Schlonsky getting the sound from witnesses who saw this all unfold.
Possible explosion, Fern Valley and Gray Lane. We've gotten multiple calls. I got a UPS plane that possibly landed on a building.
From the tarmac of a different plane, raw reaction as a tragedy unfolds.
I think it's gonna crash, bro. Holy.
I could see the smoke. Had no clue what was going on.
2 blocks away at a local bar, witnesses can't believe their eyes.
Oh my God. What the
The UPS cargo plane crashing into two businesses, creating a catastrophic explosion.
The entire left side behind Ford was just completely black from smoke. It was everywhere.
The smoke.
Oh, wow. Our backyard. That's the plume of smoke.
Seen for miles.
Especially when it blocked out the moon. You know, it's something horrific when it blocks out the moon.
Sandra Mills saw the plane go down, praying for the souls on board.
All of a sudden, I just seen a huge fireball just go up in the sky.
Sadly, all three crew members were killed. The death toll on the ground continues to climb.
He literally works on Fern Valley and Grade Lane. Very eerie, scary feeling that we could have possibly been in the area. Thankfully, we weren't.
The plane heading to Hawaii.
It's just crazy.
Mail and packages scattered onto nearby homes.
And then my son was like, hey, look in the sky. And it was coming down out of the sky. And when he picked it up.
An uneasy sadness gripping the entire city as we wait to learn the names of those we lost.
I'm just hoping there ain't none of my buddies that work at UPS.
And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, what did I just witness?
Our thanks to Brian for that report. And sort of in the vein of the conversation, if you joined us at the moment, retired U.S. Air Force pilot Sean Dawley was here in studio. The NTSB investigation will be sort of the thing. We'll be waiting for those updates over the course of the next days and likely well into next week. The first full day of the NTSB Go Teams investigation is going to begin tomorrow. We're told the NTSB, again, expects to be in Louisville for the next week at least. One concern in the immediate and still waning aftermath for families following the crash, especially for those so close to the crash site, was their concern for the drinking water that flows into their home, if that was going to be safe to consume. In a press conference earlier today, Mayor Craig Greenberg made a statement addressing some of those concerns.
And all residential water service is safe to drink. Everyone's water is safe to drink unless you have been specifically reached out to by the Louisville Water Company giving you an advisory. You should feel comfortable that your water is safe to drink.
So from there, we also learned the team at UofL Health immediately sprung into action, trying to care for the people injured in this crash and any others who came in saying that they just breathed in so much black smoke. Today, we heard from the system's CEO praising first responders for everything they did out in the field.
Even before we declared the disaster alert, when people started seeing this on social media or the news and we didn't know what was occurring, we had folks really starting to come back in and we're staging. They said, I'm in the parking lot in my car, call if you need me. I'm in the cafeteria, I came back into work. And I think that just talks to the dedication of the people here at UofL Health. Like, this is what we do. This is why we're here. We're here to, I don't think you can overstate the importance of, for example, decontamination and triage at the scene. There was a massive amount of jet fuel that was spilled in the area. So they were taking care of those patients, cleaning them, making sure they're decontaminated before they ever got to us.
In total, UofL Health treated 15 patients, is what they disclosed, injuries ranging from burns to blast injuries. Again, leaders, and you heard there the CEO saying that the staff stepped up to answer to that call in the immediate aftermath. In this vantage point here, you see just how massive the plume of smoke is and how far it reached across the metro. Emergency services say that they're going to continue monitoring air quality throughout the day. Governor Andy Beshear saying the plane itself was not carrying any hazardous materials on board. So there's no cargo that itself was considered hazardous. But teams are still checking the air for particles, for plane fuel, what might have impacted the Kentucky Petroleum Recycling Center that was hit by that plane on Grade Lane. Again, so this is video you could see just for miles how expansive this smoke was. And that shelter-in-place order, I believe, I might have stated it to start our stream here at the top of the hour. But at our last check, which could always change, but was still active for a quarter of a mile near that, near the airport, near SDF. And as the community mourns the loss, and who knows who else we might have to count among those lives lost once everything is settled and the dust is settled, children in our community might be curious or confused about what happened exactly. So part of our reporting today was also spending time talking to a Norton's children's psychologist, and he talked about what parents should and should not mention when talking to kids about the plane crash.
Whenever parents not only skip over like the news segments that talk about it, but also don't allow any discussion of it at all. That's called cocooning. That makes the topic kind of forbidden or scarier than it needs to be. It tells kids that you're not allowed to feel how you feel about it.
So that's Dr. Clint Nowicki, and he recommends parents, if they're curious about asking for any professional help for their child, if they notice that they're starting to struggle in school or struggling to socialize or enjoying any family time because of the way their bodies are processing what happened with this tragedy, that is something Dr. Nowicki says to reach out to qualified medical professionals who can, offer that insight and ability for the kids to process everything that has happened or to the best that they can. And certainly in the coming days and weeks, for anybody to reach out to those if they need someone to talk to, someone who can offer that comforting shoulder is very much understandable. We're going to wrap things up tonight here in the Wave Now studio. Very, honored, grateful that you would spend your time here to join us on this live stream through your accounts on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, just to make sure to check in. And this is the latest information. Our own reporters out on the ground trying to find out the most accurate information and letting you know just how wide-reaching and extensive this tragedy is across the Louisville community, the Kentucky community, and for all those loved ones who are thinking of everybody who was impacted yesterday. And for those folks also tuning in on the Wave Now app on your smart TV devices from home. Appreciate that opportunity as well. All right. I'm Jose Sosaya here in the Wave Now studio. For the folks joining us and commenting just what this tragedy has meant to you in our stream, our hearts are with you as well. We will see you back here for the latest for Thursday's edition of Wave News Extra here in the studio tomorrow night at 8:05. Until then, take care.